Welcome to ActiveRain University, everybody. My name is Bob Stewart. Today we're going to talk about unlocking the secrets to keyword phrases and maybe demystifying them a little bit. These things aren't that tough to put together. You just got to there's a certain way that I like to think about them. And so we're going to go through here. I'm going to show you some of the ways that I think about keyword phrases. And hopefully this will give you guys some insight on how to think about your keyword phrases in your own market. At the end of this call, we are going to give you access to, here I am, we're going to give you access to a download that we have that's like 500 keyword phrases that have to do with the phrase homes for sale. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit throughout the day, but that's a really kind of valuable thing today because Google no longer shows us this information. They no longer in their analytics show us keyword data like they used to. So why are you going to spend the next 60 minutes with me? Well, the keyword that you choose to use for your blog post, the thing from last week's class, it becomes that thing you use in the title, right? It becomes that phrase you use throughout the post. It becomes the phrase you use for your link and your anchor text. It's important that you kind of target that thing correctly because that is going to be that thing that somebody searches for in Google. And our ability to rank is entirely predicated off what we start with as our keyword phrase. Like, what's the thing that we're trying to get somebody to find us for? And when somebody first gets started blogging, or man, I even see people that have been blogging for a long time who have some really great content. You know, they take this class and then at some point they kind of fall back into this trap of not focusing or not thinking about what it is they're writing about and how people are going to find it in the search engines. So I want you to look on this screen right here, and what you see is, you know, the titles of some blog posts that are probably really great posts. Okay, the content of these posts, you know, we can set that aside. Let's just assume it's all really great content. And if a consumer was to find it, they would absolutely be educated about whatever it was the agent was writing about or the professional was writing about. But look at the keyword phrases they use. Like the first one, the 10/11/2012 market update. Market update for where? Right? Pumpkin festivals are so much fun. Hey, you know what? I agree. But that's not going to help a consumer who's trying to go to that pumpkin festival, right? As we look in there, it's the Art and Wine Pumpkin Festival in Ladysmith Village. Like, that should be the keyword phrase, right? Or just listed in Westfield, 4219 Amesbury Place. Like, these are not things people search for, right? People want a charming home in a wonderful community, but that's not how they search for houses. And so we really have to think about, when we create a keyword phrase, will anyone search for this? Now, is it more likely they'd search for things like, you know, homes for sale near Emory University, or bank-owned homes for sale in Vancouver, or oceanfront homes for sale in Vero Beach? These are all, by the way, queries that people have done to land on an ActiveRain blog post written by one of our members, Granville County property taxes, like the foreclosure process for Illinois, right? And as you look at these keyword phrases that these folks use versus the ones that were used here, we start to see kind of a pattern emerging, and I'll talk about what that pattern is in just a minute. Let's go back and review a little bit from last week talking about the long tail. And we talked about the long tail, and I kind of gave you guys an example of the long tail, and it threaded its way through our conversation last week. The long tail is essentially all these other ways that people can find something in search that aren't very popular, but cumulatively they make up a bunch of the traffic. The big head are these common terms that in any one of our markets are searched for in a high volume, and the top 8 make up about 30% of this. So I give you an example there of Seattle condos for sale. Like in real estate, that's a big head term. Okay, that term gets searched for quite a bit, right? That, Seattle real estate, homes for sale in Seattle, Seattle houses, right? Those are kind of the big head terms. We are thinking in terms of the long tail because first we can, right, loft condos for sale in Belltown, Seattle, a very specific thing. It won't get searched for a ton, right? Not as common as Seattle condos for sale, but it's somebody looking for something very specific, and we have a chance to get in there and compete. And that the benefits of the long tail then become, we have that ability to compete. Look, the search has changed a lot in the last couple of years. And the big boys are solidifying themselves in those positions for those big head terms. Okay? Literally, if you go to any one of your markets and search homes for sale in and then your city name, you're going to find Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com. If Redfin's in your market, they might sneak in there. There might be maybe one agent on that first page. Okay, but when we get out onto the long tail, because those types of sites, those big national media sites, they cannot and do not have content about very specific aspects of your market. Okay, I want that to sink in. They don't have the content that you essentially have in your head. Now, if you started blogging, you're getting some of this content onto the web, right? But you have this content in your head. You know all about the condo complexes, the subdivisions. You have the answers to the frequently asked questions. You know about the tax rates. You know about the loan programs that they're unique to your area. You know about these things that don't get searched for as often, but they absolutely get searched for. Now, the next benefit then becomes this search traffic is very targeted, which means the person is potentially closer to taking action. That guy or lady that searched for Seattle condos for sale, they're 12 to 18 months away from buying. The person that searches loft condos for sale in Belltown, Seattle, or the guy that searches 2-bedroom condos for sale in Seattle near Amazon, that person is much closer to taking action. They're much closer to buying. They know what they want. Right? They know what the specific area of Seattle they want to be in. They know what type of condo they're interested in. Okay? This person is going to be closer to taking action. So let's talk about how to construct a keyword phrase. Okay? We're going to have plenty of time for question and answer at the end of the call here. And we got a good block because this is a really important thing for you guys to understand is how do I construct a keyword phrase. So there's two components of this, and this is a review from last week as well, but we're really going to dive into this. And last week I was telling you, hey, next week we're really going to dive in, and here we go. Okay, so when you think about search, and especially when you think about it in real estate, there are two components. Okay, subject matter and geography. And most search, and in fact all search, has some component of this, right? Subject matter is such a broad, just ridiculous statement, I think, but as we bring it closer to real estate, right, it'll make sense. But we've got subject matter and geography, and we're always thinking of our keyword phrase in terms of these two things. Okay, and then how do they relate to each other? Well, the more specific our geography, the less specific the subject matter. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples, but first let's talk about how do we get more specific with our geography. To me, after doing this for so long, it seems pretty obvious, and hopefully as you look at this, to you it seems obvious as well, right? We've kind of got this, real broad geography, like homes for sale in Washington. People don't do searches like that very often, by the way. They'll actually do a search like homes for sale more often than they'll do a search like homes for sale in Washington. And the search engines are getting so good today that they know a person sitting in Seattle and types in homes for sale probably wants homes in Seattle, and they'll actually serve them up content related to where they're sitting. But in real estate, it makes sense for people to use that geography, right? Homes for sale in some area. And so they start to get more specific the closer they get to actually wanting something. So they might be looking in a county, right? They might be looking at a city level. And this is where I said, those big boys just dominate, right? When we're talking subject matter, homes for sale, real estate, houses for sale, condos for sale, combined with a city level geography, it's really hard for us to compete. But when we start to get just below that, when we start to get at a neighborhood level or a subdivision or condo complex level, or we start to think of our geography in terms of being near things, we can start to create keyword phrases and then content based on those keyword phrases that focuses on very specific things in our geography. And remember, we said the more specific we get with our geography, the less specific we can be with the subject matter component of the keyword phrase. So looking here, and in each of these, hopefully you can pick out the subject matter, right? The subject matter is homes for sale in the first one. It's condos for sale in the second one. It's townhomes for sale in the third one. That's the subject matter. The geography then becomes that specific place we're talking about. So homes for sale in Carriagewood rented, right? In the second example, Plaza del Sol is the name of the building. So Plaza del Sol in Seattle, the condos for sale is the subject matter, right? So we get real specific with our geography in there. And then you can see townhomes for sale, right? That's even a little bit more kind of specific subject matter because townhomes is not as popular as like homes or, but Simiamu is like the neighborhood or the community inside of the city of Blaine. Condos for sale near Amazon, South Lake Union. The flip side of that then is the more specific the subject matter, the less specific we can be with the geography. So again, in search, the subject matter side becomes that, you know, the big head terms are things like homes for sale, real estate, condos for sale, houses for sale, right? So how do you get those and make them more specific? Well, you got to think of, like, what do people want in their houses, right? Like, is it a shock for anybody to think that somebody might go out and search for condos for sale in Seattle under $200,000? I hope that's not a shock to you. People do that. Or is it would it be any surprise to people that people search for, like in Seattle, you might search for a condo for sale with a view of Lake Union. Condo for sale in Seattle with a view of Lake Union, right? The subject matter becomes condo for sale with a view of Lake Union, right? The geography is in Seattle. It's kind of, we can be more general with the geography when we get very specific with that subject matter side of the equation, right? People do all kinds of searches looking for homes for sale in a certain area with a specific feature. This concept, for me, is one of the most underutilized. And, you know, we used Katrina Benton last week as an example. She's done a really good job of getting specific with, let me go back for a second, with this near stuff. She's doing homes for sale in Anchorage near certain schools. And she's done it for all the schools. And she gets leads because people go online in Anchorage and they look for a home for sale in a certain school district or near a certain elementary school. But there's this whole other side, and Katrina hasn't tapped into this, and actually not too many people have tapped into this very effectively, is this type of dwelling. So it might be a townhome for sale, a condo, a house, you know, a row house, a rambler, a single story, right, for sale with something. So it might be with a 3-car garage. It might be a condo for sale in Seattle with 2 parking spaces. Right? Most condos in Seattle come with 1 parking space. Would it be beyond the realm of possibility that somebody out there has 2 cars? No. If they were on Zillow and Trulia and they couldn't find any condos that had 2-car garages and they were just pulling their hair out, what are they going to do? They're going to go to Google and they're going to search for what they want. Now, don't just think about this in terms of your market and what you know about your market, because there's some follies that can come out of that. And so I might have shared this last week, but we have there's a guy on ActiveRain, his name's Tom Branch, and we previously have gone around the country and done seminars like this, like you guys are listening to today. And we were in Dallas one time, and the night before we were going to hold the seminar, a tornado came through Dallas. And our hotel, they knocked on our doors, and they got everybody down in the lobby, and we all got down in the lobby, and you can see the winds are blowing outside, and this tornado is like heading towards downtown Dallas, and they tell us, okay, everybody, we're going to get everybody in this conference hall in the middle of the hotel on the first floor. And I'm thinking to myself, look, we don't have tornadoes in Seattle. I'm scared at this point, right? Like, there's a tornado coming. But we don't have tornadoes in Seattle, but I've seen The Wizard of Oz, and aren't you supposed to go to the basement? You know, and then I would learn as we're sitting in this room in the middle that Dallas doesn't have a lot of basements because it's built on clay. So the next day I get up on stage and I'm talking about something very similar to what we're talking about here today, and I say to the crowd, you know what, you guys, if I was in Dallas, if I was looking to move to Dallas, because I'm not from here, I very well, after what happened last night, may search for a home for sale with a basement in Dallas, especially if I was on one of the big boys and I couldn't find any homes for sale with a basement in Dallas. Either because there weren't any, which I wouldn't know why, right, because I'm not from there, or they don't maybe have the search fields for somebody to be able to find that thing. So right away, because there's always somebody in the crowd, and you're on, this person's on this call, they're the look for a reason to not be able to do something person. And so there was, and I can see their faces as clear as day to this day, 3 or 4 years later. In the front row, 2 hands immediately go up. And I knew what they were going to say. I could just tell by the look on their face because they wanted to show me why this was, you know, flawed thinking. And I stopped them. I said, ma'am, I have no question that you are about to tell me that you guys don't have homes for sale with basements in Dallas. But here's the deal. I don't know that. I'm from Seattle. There was one guy in the audience. Let me actually take you out and show you. There was one guy in the audience who decided while we were sitting there, he was going to write the blog post about homes for sale with a basement in Dallas. See this post right here? Let's click on it. Tom Branch is an ActiveRain member. He went out that day, literally that day, and he wrote this post while he was sitting in the audience. I was recently talking with an out-of-state friend who was visiting us, told us if he moved to Dallas, he wanted to find a home for sale with a basement. Homes with basements are very uncommon, so he just basically told me, look, and here's why. Here's why the person was thinking that. He talks in here, right? Storm produced a couple of tornadoes in the area. That was me, the scared guy. But guess what? There are a few, and Tom gives you a chance to find them, right? And so he links back to his website, and we'll really talk about this in the last week of the class. We talked a little bit about it last week. But here's the 29 homes in their entire market that have a basement. If you did that search in Seattle, there'd be hundreds of homes for sale that have a basement. Assuming we're in a normal market where there were actually hundreds of homes for sale. So don't always think about what people want in a home in your market based on what you actually have. Right now, in some cases, it is going to be what you actually have. Like if I'm in Phoenix, I'm actually writing a post like homes for sale in Phoenix with a mother-in-law suite. If I'm in Seattle, right, or downtown, I'm writing about condos, like condos with a 2-car garage. Like that's a great one. Condos in Seattle with a 2-car garage. Like if there's probably very few of them. In fact, the blog post might go on to say, look, there are none of these. If you come across one, you should snatch it up at whatever price. Some other ways you can think about homes, right? Types of homes. So you can put some qualifiers around that type of property they're looking for. Right? There's an area of Seattle called Green Lake that has a lot of like Victorian style homes, and it's kind of known for that. And it wouldn't be shocking to see somebody searching for something like Victorian homes for sale in Green Lake, Seattle. And in that case, my keyword phrase would have actually I would have gotten a little bit specific with the subject matter, right? A colonial or a Victorian home for sale, and a little bit specific with the subject matter, right? In Green Lake, Seattle. Think of names of builders, like you'll see people doing searches like Del Webb Homes for Sale in Anthem, Arizona. Right? Del Webb built that community. Builders actually, there's a really unique opportunity if you have, because we're coming out of this crazy like slump, right? Where the builders weren't building a bunch of stuff, but it's starting to come back. And some of the most highly trafficked posts on ActiveRain are written about brand new subdivisions that a builder's building. And one of the reasons is that just the name of that subdivision is not out on the internet a lot yet, right? There hasn't been a bunch of listings about it. There's not a lot of content about like names of new subdivisions. And so what builders do, they'll have a website, and their website will generally come up if you were to query that, the name of that subdivision, homes for sale in name of subdivision or something. But there won't be a whole lot else. And in fact, the builders probably do more offline marketing, right? They do things like radio advertising, billboards, that kind of. My favorite billboard is the one where you're driving on the freeway and there's a big billboard and it says, you know, if you lived in the new Del Webb Anthem Ridge, you'd be home by now. Well, what does the consumer do when they actually get home if they were interested in that thing? They just go to Google and they type in Del Webb Anthem Ridge homes for sale. You have a chance to be ranking on that page, right, on the first page for that search, right? Think of words that describe properties: equestrian property, a retirement community, gated properties for sale in some area, right? And then again, just some examples of how we get more specific with that subject matter. So in these cases, the geography in each of these is at a city level, right? Vero Beach oceanfront condos for sale. Homes for sale in the basement in Dallas. I gave you guys that one already, right? Homes for sale in Buckley with a view of Mount Rainier. You guys know what your consumers are looking for, right? You know kind of what those things are with the people that you already are connected with that they're interested in, right? That home for sale under $200,000 in Lacey. Okay, a few things to consider with your keyword phrase as you go to build it out, or as you think about it, as you write it down, right? It needs, like, the phrase itself needs to be in the front of your title. And here's what I mean by that is sometimes people want to put in things like, you know, a great investment. Like, let's say I was writing about a listing. Instead of using 123 Main Street as the title, right, I promise you if somebody knows the address of your property, they're going to find your listing. It might not be on your blog. What do you care, right? But what if they were searching for a property like yours? What if they were searching for, you know, a Vero Beach oceanfront condo for sale? Okay, but I wanted to say something like in a secure community. Right? Make sure you get the keyword phrase portion of it in the front. And the keyword phrase is that subject matter that relates to real estate and that geography. If you want to add some flowery description to your title, you can do that, but just realize it's not your keyword phrase. And if you choose to do that, put it at the end. Your keyword phrase should come first. And then your keyword phrase, right, the subject matter component of it and the geography matter component become that phrase that you attempt to use 3 to 5 times based on what we talked about last week. Your keyword phrase should stay under 70 characters. This is kind of a, not a hard and fast rule, but it's kind of a best practices sort of thing, right? And generally that kind of relates to how people query, right? People don't generally query massively long strings. They'll do some pretty long tail stuff. And you're going to see that in the download we give you, the 500 free keywords, or the 500 homes for sale keyword download that we give you at the end of the class. You're going to see some pretty detailed queries, but they're generally not longer than 70 characters. Never, ever, ever target more than one keyword phrase. And we talked about this last week, but it's so important because I see people doing it all the time. Okay? They'll do something like, loft and 2- and 3-bedroom condos for sale in downtown Seattle. Like, they think, oh, if I can get loft condos in downtown Seattle to rank, I'd want to pick up the person that's looking for 2-bedroom condos in downtown Seattle or the person that's looking for 3-bedroom. But the problem becomes is every additional thing we attempt to rank for, every additional keyword phrase that we try to get into our title detracts from our ability to rank for anything. So if we have one thing, we have a chance to rank for it. If we have 3 things, we have about 1/3 of the chance to rank for any of them. That makes sense? And then we're almost always going to use geography. If you are writing a post where your aim is to get it to rank in the search engines, there should generally be some component of geography. But look, you guys write a lot of content, or there's the potential you could write content that's just good content for your business, right? Like 10 steps to get your home ready to sell, or 10 steps to getting pre-approved to buy your next home, right? I don't know that it would necessarily make sense to try to jam Seattle in there just because, right? If I'm writing about homes for sale in some specific area, obviously I'm going to use the geography. But don't force in geography if it doesn't make sense, right? And then always understand that Google will actually, they know where you're at. Okay, they can look at especially if you have Google authorship set up, they can look at the other stuff you wrote, and they can realize that the 10 tips for getting your home ready to sell, you're probably talking about Seattle. Because everything else you've written has been about Seattle. It's been about the condo complexes, the subdivisions, the homes near Amazon. It's all been about one thing. So when you write the post about 10 tips to get your house ready to sell, it might not make sense to jam Seattle in there. Let's talk about some other kind of keyword phrases that you will see people using when they get ready to search for a house, or some of these are even just people that maybe already live in a house. It's the information about living somewhere, right? It's what are the best neighborhoods. It's what's the tax rates for this township. It's, what kind of loan programs are available in my market. These best neighborhoods in types of posts do really well. Okay, and what it can become is a collection of content that you maybe have already created. So like I use Katrina Benton as an example all the time. She now has all of these great posts out there about the different subdivisions in Anchorage. It wouldn't be a stretch for her to write a post like best neighborhoods in Anchorage, top neighborhoods in Anchorage, something like that, right? And it just becomes a collection of the content she's already done. People search for this. If I don't know Anchorage and I'm moving there, look, I grew up in the Seattle area. I actually grew up in Renton, which is a suburb of Seattle. Literally, if I was moving to Auburn, which is next door to Renton, I don't know any neighborhoods in Auburn. It would not be a stretch for me to go best neighborhoods in Auburn. Just to start my search and just to get an idea of where I even want to live in Auburn, a town that I've dined in, I've played in, I've driven through, but I have no idea about the neighborhoods there. Here's an example. This lady, Linda, she does top Cary, North Carolina neighborhoods, and she goes in and you can see she kind of gives just a little synopsis of Cary Park, which is a neighborhood she's already written about. She gives a little synopsis of the Highcroft, which is a neighborhood where she fully wrote about Highcroft neighborhood. Right? So think about how you can take some of that content you've created and put it into a best of post. Best condo buildings in Capitol Hill. Right? Capitol Hill is a neighborhood of Seattle. It's right above downtown. There's a ton of condo complexes in that area, and a lot of people want to live there. Right? It's not a stretch. Again, I just can't keep... People search that stuff. They search best condo buildings in Queen Anne, best condo buildings in Capitol Hill. Tax information. This is a great thing for you guys to be writing about, property tax rates. So, when you do this, always be thinking about what will they search, right? They're not going to search like Macomb Township has a property tax rate of 1.8%. Like that's not how they search, right? They search what is the property tax rate in Macomb County? What is the property tax rate in Macomb Township? So think about how somebody searches as you build your keyword phrase. And the subject matter there becomes what is the property tax rate? And the geography becomes in Macomb Township, right? What is the property tax rate is a pretty specific subject matter. How do I dispute my tax assessment in Macomb County? Again, think about how the person would ask the question in the search engine. Because the query that they make becomes the thing that Google goes out and tries to match. And if you have the answer instead of the way they would have questioned it, you might not be aligned in the manner that you want to be. When are property taxes due in Macomb County? Not property taxes are due March 28th in Macomb County, right? Now, that example, there's a little, I mean, you know, if you wrote a really good piece about it, there's still a chance you get up there, even if you use the wrong keyword phrase. But we're really striving, like I said last week, to get all these signals aligned. You know, maybe we're talking about loan information or home buying programs. We see a lot of people search for things like FHA loan limits in, and those searches generally happen at a county level. Right? People do the research to understand, like, FHA loan limits are set at a county level, and so they'll go in and do, okay, well, I'm looking to buy in King County. What is the FHA loan limits in King County? What are some VA-approved condo buildings in Seattle? You know, there's all kinds of loan programs. Like, Katrina Benton has one. It's called the HUD 184 Alaska Native American Home Ownership Program or something like that. That post gets hundreds of clicks a month for her, right? Because she knows her market. She knows this special program, a loan program that's happening in her market. She realizes that there's other people out there talking about it, whether it be in the news or the newspaper, or maybe there was a story on the news last night, or, you know, mortgage folks are talking about it. People are getting flyers that say, they're going online and they're researching it, and she's coming up. FAQs, I've already talked about this, just remember, right? So I get a question from a client. They email it to me, right? Before you became a blogger, you responded with an email back to them. Now that you understand the power of your content, the power of your written words, right? Those same words you would have used in the email to respond, you should make those a blog post. You now have an answer to that question for them. It becomes, hey, Jenny, that was an awesome question. In fact, you know what? You're not the first person that's ever asked me this. So I thought that I would create a blog post out of your question specifically. Here's the link. I got all the answers in there for you. The next time somebody asks you that same question, it's the same thing. Hey, guess what? You're not the first person to ever ask me this question. I had a really awesome client named Jenny who asked me this question 6 months ago. I wrote a blog post about it for Jenny, but it's absolutely applicable to you. In fact, I made a little bit of an update to it because there was something that changed in that loan program. Here's the blog post, right? Think about your frequently asked questions, but think about them in terms of a keyword phrase being, how would they ask it? Not how you would answer it. And I mean, every single day I see somebody writing a great piece of content but not understanding that it all starts with my keyword phrase. Right? What is that most likely way that they're gonna ask it? Okay, so we're done for the most part. Okay, we still have about 25 minutes left, and I'm glad I was able to get through this kind of quick. Before we jump in and start asking your questions, there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you guys about, because one of the questions that always comes, and it's probably sitting in there right now, is where can I research this stuff? Where can I really understand what the keywords that are being searched for in my market are? There used to be a thing called Google Analytics, and you could see keywords in there. Google doesn't offer that anymore. And in fact, it is getting harder and harder to research what the keywords, there's some paid tools you can use, right? But here's what I think. I think that your expertise and your understanding of your market will help you create keyword phrases that people will search for. Some of this is a little bit of a leap of faith, right? Some of it you have to just believe me that people search for loft condos in Belltown, Seattle, that they do very specific searches like that. I promise you they do it. Okay, Katrina Benton's generating literally hundreds of leads a month because people search for things like homes for sale near Jackson Elementary School in Anchorage. She's generating a bunch of leads because people search for things like HUD 184, Native American loan program. we are going to give you, as a part of the downloadable action items, Carrie right now is giving you the link in the chat section. You guys have a link right now where you can go get the action items for this webinar, where we're basically going to ask you, write down a few keyword phrases for yourself. But part of that is a download of 500 keyword phrases that use the term home for sale. And these came from before Google stopped showing us what people query. So it's some really good insight. Now, when you look at that list, I hope it's obvious that it's not going to be related to your market. It's a nationwide look at how people search, but what you can do is as you start to look in there, you can understand how they search, and then you can apply it to your own market. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're going through there and you see that somebody searched for something like ranch-style home in Green Lake, Seattle, right? Now, you don't live in Seattle, you don't sell real estate in Seattle, and you don't even know what a ranch home is, right? Like where you come from, they call it a rambler. I mean, you know what a ranch home is, right? It's a single story. But where you come from, they call it a rambler. So your post might become, ramblers for sale in Greenwood Village, Arkansas, or Greenwood Village, Salt Lake City, right? Whatever your community is, right, with your style of home. So as you look at those 500 keyword phrases, start thinking about your market and how do these things apply to your market. Okay, now she's going to send you the link for everybody to get signed up for next week. Next week, before we jump in and talk, we're going to do questions here. I'm going to answer every single question I can in the next 20 minutes. Google Author Authority is what we're going to talk about next week. It is, for me, one of the emerging trends of SEO, and SEO has changed a lot in the last couple of years. This one, for me, in the next couple of years is going to be massively important, I believe. So you're going to want to join us for that class next week. So let's go in here now. And let's answer some questions. Oh, give me 1 second here. Let's do it that way. Okay. Had to get my questions panel out here so that I can see all the great questions you guys might have. Okay. Aaron says, what is the maximum number of words or characters that should be used for long-tail search? So that may have been asked before I said 70. But again, that's not a hard and fast rule. Like if my phrase has 73 characters in it, it's not going to be the end of the world, right? It's just like the 70 characters is what gets displayed in the link, in the clickable component of a Google search result. Eleanor says, how would we handle other realtors in the area doing the same as per your example? Well, there's 10 places on the first page of a search engine, so you would get up there with them. Look, at the end of the day, Eleanor, and this is tough, especially for somebody who's just getting started and who's new. The answer to this is a tough one to digest. It becomes a matter of who perseveres, okay? A month from now, you're going to have 5 posts about subdivisions and condo complexes in your area. 5 months from now, you're going to have 30 posts. A year from now, you're going to have 50 posts. That other person's going to stop. Okay? If they don't stop and you guys are kind of going in tandem side by side, fine, right? You're going to show up. They're going to show up sometimes, right? Then it becomes a matter of, okay, who's got the better piece of content, right? You can always kind of look out there, look at who you're competing against and see what they've written. Like, can I add something more? Can I add something better? Because, like, if I went through and wrote the 5 paragraphs that I kind of lay out for you in writing about a condo complex, first paragraph, flowery description. Second paragraph, about the unit or about the units in the building. Third paragraph, about the building. Fourth paragraph, about the area, right? Fifth paragraph, wrap it up and give them some links into some additional resources. Let's say I did that for 20 condo complexes and I just see, gosh, there's this other person who's doing this and they're just ranking a little bit better than me. What I could do, think about something else that I can get in there. Some other piece of content that adds value to that post, right? It might be, what schools does this area cover? And I do a paragraph about the schools. It might be, what businesses are nearby, or what is transportation like here? And I do a paragraph for each of my complexes about transportation around that area. You know, what are the local bus lines? How long does it take to get downtown? Right? There's always, like, Katrina just started doing these, which is really advanced, but these, like, she's taken a Google map and she's overlaying a spreadsheet on it that has recent sales data. Now she's got a Google map that has pinpoints where all of the recent solds are at. That's a piece of content she added into her blog post that is separating her from the pack. Bruce says, is Word Tracker or Moz, which used to be SEO Moz, good for keyword research in the absence of Google keyword analysis? It is, Bruce, but here's the pitfall, really, and this was even a pitfall when Google was giving us its own keyword analysis. The long tail is not, from a monetary perspective, the long tail is not valuable to Google's business. Their business is predicated on selling ads around search. And when people do long tail search, there's never ads associated with it because the search volume isn't done at a high enough level, right? Like a search like loft condos in Belltown, Seattle, that might only get done 5 times this month. Nobody bids on that because it's not worth it, right? And Google never used to serve, like, there was some break point at like 20, on average 20 like queries a month, where if it was below that, they never showed it to you. But here's the deal, if they never showed me that loft condos in Belltown, Seattle was a query that got done, I don't give a rip. Personally, I know it gets done. Right? And if it only gets done 5 times this month, I don't care. I want to be the person that shows up for those 5 people. Why? Because those people are closer to actually buying something, and they know what they want. And I can rank for it. Right? So, Bruce, you can use those things, but there becomes this kind of, this point where the data is, like, these companies aren't providing the data on the long tail. It's hard to collect because it's somewhat sporadic, right? That's why we talk about taking a cumulative approach, right? Any one blog post isn't going to set your business on fire, right? It's that cumulative approach. It's all of those blog posts. It's in a year, Katrina Benton's written 150 blog posts. That's an average of 1 every other day. She generates hundreds of leads a month because of it. And that's why, right? Because she took a cumulative approach. She's written about every condo complex, every subdivision. She's written about all the elementary schools. She's written about homes for sale with certain features in her market that she knows are popular. It's a great question, Bruce. Diane says, is there a similar keyword list for stagers? While I find the theory interesting, much of the specific information in this webinar is of little value to me as a stager. I want you to think about how people might find your services and what are the subject matter keywords. Look, I could maybe look. It would be an old list because they don't give us this data anymore. Google doesn't. But Diane, you have to sit down and look at your business and think about how people find you. And like staging would be one, but like redecorating, interior design, you know, hiring someone to redo my kitchen, or like and then a geography, right? So really think about, and the action items will be good for you, Diane, because now after listening to the theory of this, which you said is interesting at this point, the action item will force you to go in and really think about it, right? Think about me as a stager and like, what are people looking for? I apologize because I've never been a stager. Like we had a real estate company and we generated leads for a real estate company, so I have 10 years of history and understanding of the behavior of people looking for properties. I don't have that much for staging, but I do know this. I do know that subject matter is important, and there's a whole bunch of different subject matter in your arena, right? It might be things like I think about reorganizing my closet, like help reorganizing my closet in Seattle. Right? Like, again, I don't know your business well enough to know, like, I know stagers stage homes, but I know a lot of them also do that kind of interior design stuff, or they'll they'll come into somebody's house and help them stage the house they live in to make it feel better. Right? So just really think about, how do people find you? What are those phrases, those subject matter side of the phrases that they use? And then you think about it in conjunction with where you do business. I hope that helps a little bit, Diane. I realize that this class is mainly focused towards agents, but the concept, or the theory like you called it, it's not a theory, by the way. Like theories, I think you have to prove. I don't know, I forget my math, but this is happening. People are doing these searches. Those 500 keywords you sent out are not 500 keywords I made up. They're 500 keywords that somebody queried that led them to a blog post on ActiveRain. Sam says, how do we take advantage of keyword phrases and advertise it on Craigslist, since Craigslist only allows one property per post? One of the things, Craigslist it's changed a lot in the last couple of months, right? Anybody that's been using it knows this. Right? There's no links anymore. They've got these like messages now that tell you if you're posting the real estate services section, you better be posting about one property. One of the things that Katrina does, she does it very loosely, but she will just post about a particular property. But then in that post, she'll say, you can find out more information about the neighborhood this property is located in, and she'll point them to her ActiveRain. She is treading thin ice, by the way. Like, that's getting very close. But she's doing it while advertising one property. It's really too bad, because you used to be able to take a post like this and put it into Craigslist and say, interested in homes for sale in this particular subdivision, and they could, click there and then follow off to your blog post there. That Craigslist is trying to get rid of that. Vanita says, I am still not clear on whether I start my blog on ActiveRain or on my website. Okay. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I work for ActiveRain. I don't want you guys to think that I don't realize that you're listening to me from ActiveRain's perspective, okay? That being said, your blog, while you may have it show up on your website, should absolutely come from some other domain, because when you create links in your blog posts, we talked a little bit about them last week, and when we talked about creating an anchor text link that uses our keyword phrase. But that link, and in the last class in this series, we'll talk all about links. That link going from ActiveRain, and now it's coming off of the Trulia domain, right? I don't know if you guys all kind of saw our recent announcement about merging ActiveRain into the Trulia domain. Those links, you're getting credit from Google as a backlink from Trulia. That backlink from Trulia to your website, because of the blog you posted on ActiveRain, is helping your website perform better in the search engines. So, SEO at a high level, we say, well, we start with quality content, right? Then we look at what keyword phrases are people looking for. And then we look at backlinks, and the backlinks that we can get from our blog that's somewhere else are going to be more powerful than any links we could give to ourselves on our own website, right? If we have it on our own website and we link to some other page on our website, it's an internal link and it doesn't really show Google anything. So you could absolutely have it in both places, and there's kind of this I don't know, this myth that if you put your content in more than one place, Google will penalize you. Matt Cutts, Google's SEO expert, has come out and said it's exactly that, it's a myth. If you do that, you're going to want to make sure you have Google authorship set up. And next week, we're going to talk all about Google authorship. I'll touch a little bit more on this idea of duplicate content, or having your content on your website and on ActiveRain. Okay, there's actually what you would want to do is you'd place the content on your website, and then you would go over and put it on a blog on ActiveRain, and then the link at the very bottom of the content, you would say originally posted at Vanita's website, or the name of your website, and you would link back to the page on your website where the content also lived. It's essentially telling Google, I know I did this in two places. First off, I have authorship set up on my website and on my blog. I'm not trying to hide anything from you, Google. But Google said, look, we don't care if you write a unique piece of content, you want to put it in two places, fine. Duplicate content penalties are designed to get that person who would come by and scrape your website, take content from your site, take content from 15 other sites in Anchorage, and then create a website based on other people's content. Aaron says, so you believe it is not important to include the location name in the title or keyword. It is absolutely imperative if we're writing about something where it's like homes for sale, condos for sale in an area, right? Then you have to get it in there. But if you're writing like, let's say it was, again, how to get better curb appeal if you're getting ready to list your house. That post is not going to be helped by adding Seattle to it. In fact, it might hurt it. Here's why. Google knows where you're at. They know you're an agent in Seattle. And they also know where the person searching is at. And in fact, if a person searching in Seattle did that query, they're going to get slightly different results than a person searching in Dallas. It's going to be based on Google's understanding of where they're at. So you want to use keyword phrases or geography in the keyword phrase when it makes sense. I hope that's clear. And look, I had literally an hour-long conversation yesterday with a lady all about keyword phrases, and she was just getting really over, and I think she was analyzing it to the point where it was almost giving her paralysis, right? Analysis by paralysis. And I just told her, I said, look, just do it. Okay? The order of your keywords, like we were talking about order, like does it matter if homes for sale comes first or if the name of the subdivision comes first? And I was saying, look, maybe it matters a tiny, tiny fraction of a little bit, but it doesn't matter more than not having the content out there. With a keyword phrase, it's maybe, Google's most recent kind of big talked about algorithm was called Hummingbird. And what Hummingbird did is it did nothing for us as people trying to rank better in the search engines. It didn't give us any additional clues or ways to try to do things to rank better. What it did is it was a search, or it was a change or an update on Google's side to try to better understand the intent of a query, right? Including things like where is the person that's making the query sitting right now? Including things like if somebody was to query loft condos in Belltown, Seattle, that's probably the exact same intent as somebody that queried Belltown, Seattle loft condos. Right? So the order of our keyword phrases, like the order of the words inside of our keyword phrase don't matter a whole bunch. Even less so now with Hummingbird because Google's just looking at their intent as they used to. Aaron, that's a big long-winded answer for a great question. Hopefully that made sense. All right, Lindsay says, how soon do people using this method generally start seeing results? That's a tough question to answer. If you wrote a blog post once a day, you should start, I would say you'll start seeing results. I don't want to scare anybody here, but you should start to expect to see first, here's how I would think about this. First, does my stuff rank, right? Like, can I get content? And after about somewhere in the 15 to 20 post area, assuming I have Google authorship set up and assuming I'm doing all the right SEO things that we talked about last week and using keyword, right, I should be able to, after about 15 to 20 posts, start to see my stuff rank. Okay? After about my next 15 to 20 posts, so now I've got 30 to 40, I should be able to start seeing traffic coming to my website. Now, if I have a website that doesn't allow me to see what kind of traffic I'm getting to my website, then how the heck are you going to know if you're even headed in the right direction? In the last week of boot camp, I'm going to show you a website and what it means to be able to see into the analytic data in the back end. Because if you wrote a post that's on fire, it's ranking, and it's sending traffic to your website, you want to write similar types of posts. Right? If the post was about, and this is why Katrina wrote all these posts about homes for sale near certain schools, because she wrote the first 10, and she started seeing traffic back to her website, so she wrote 20 more. So that would be the second step, right? I can see traffic starting to come back to my website. I would say after about another 30 days, when you get to about when you get to about 60 blog posts, and again, this is a long-term strategy, but remember, those 60 blog posts now are going to keep working for me moving forward, right? The effort I put in today is going to work for me a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now. When I get to about 60, that's when I'd expect to start seeing leads. You can, you know, members on ActiveRain that have written 5 blog posts, somebody contacted them and they're out looking at houses and they're like, this blogging thing is the greatest thing ever. That's not generally how it happens, right? At 15 to 20, you start to see your stuff getting up into the search engines because Google has a better idea of you as a collective author. You know, at 30 to 40, you start to see that traffic kind of coming back to your website, hopefully if you could track it and you have a website that lets you see it, right? And then if you're doing the right things, you're sending people to the right places on your website, you have the right lead capture technology and capabilities on your website, after you start to see traffic, then you start to see leads. Lindsay, again, if you wrote, you know, you say how soon, like if you wrote one post a week, it's going to take you a while. If you wrote a post every other day, right, it's just going to be faster. If you're in Seattle, it's going to be a little bit harder than if you're in Omaha. Or I don't know, it's some city where, you know, there's not as much competition, not as many people trying to create content at this level. John says, beginning and ending the blog with the title phrase is difficult. Does the phrase "this" need to be in the last paragraph or sentence, or does it have to be exactly the same? Okay. Let's look at, give me 1 second here. Let's look at here's a kind of a little trick of how you can get it into the beginning exactly the same. And this is like, so here at Baxter Heights Condos, I want you to see what she does is she just states it again. She doesn't use it in a sentence, it's just a statement. This is what this is about to be about, right? Then she gets it in her keyword phrase here as a link. And then somewhere at the end, hopefully she got it in here again. Thank you for reading about Baxter Heights Condos in Anchorage, Alaska, right? It doesn't have to be right at the end. In a perfect world, it would be right at the beginning. And so you'll see a lot of people just restate it at the beginning. Now, the second part of that question is, does it have to be exactly the same? There's a thing, we start to get a little bit technical, there's a thing called semantics, right? You guys have heard all semantics, right? Like, these words mean pretty much the same thing as these words. The Hummingbird really is starting to take a look at just what is the meaning behind this. And if it's a slight variation, like if she was to have gone in there and said, these condos at Baxter Heights in Anchorage are great, right? Like that would have been okay. She's not going to get penalized for doing that because the search engine looks at the entire body of content. They understand the intent of what she's writing about. They realize that, you know, it's a real person writing it. And so there could be some slight variation in there. Johnny says, confused about Google authority in my different blogs on ActiveRain. I did that assignment for last week, but was it just for my inside blog? Yeah, that setting it up on ActiveRain is just for your inside blog. There's some ways. Next week, I'll give you guys the ways you can set it up on your website and how you can set it up on an outside blog. So if that's an ActiveRain outside blog, I've got some instructions for that. If it's a WordPress blog, I'll kind of point you guys in the right direction for that as well. Stacy says, will adding the zip code to your geography hurt? And look, I would not use zip code. But this is just my familiarity with my market. I couldn't even tell you a zip code in Seattle, like a neighboring zip code. Like in Seattle, I just don't think people search like that. Like maybe in your market, if people, like if there's a reason to be in a different zip code, then you might try adding that in. But I would steer clear of it in my market. Although I saw Katrina do a bunch of those in her blog, and I've seen some traffic on the back end of her website from that stuff. So again, it's kind of a market-to-market thing, but it wouldn't be a standard for me and based on what I know and the markets that I've dealt with, which were the MRIS market, Virginia, Maryland, Southern California, Phoenix, Washington. Those are where we've generated leads at a very high level, and I never saw any kind of volume on zip code search at all. Debbie says, how do you keep information or results shared in blogs from being stale and out of date? That's that concept of evergreen, right? What you do is you take as many opportunities, like I want you to just look at this post about Baxter Heights condos in Anchorage. As we roll through here, the only thing that has some chance of being outdated is this little thing right here which talks about price range. Everything else in here is what we call evergreen, which means the content is as good today as when she wrote it back in October of last year. Okay, she's talking in generalities. If they want to get specifics, like they want to get the specific properties for sale, they can click here. Those are the 2 houses right now for sale in that area. Okay. What if she wanted to like get some market stats or something? She wanted to give them a little bit of context about what's going on there. What are things selling for? Well, down here she gives them a chance to get demographic and community reports. Right? Get free community reports. She sends them over to her website, where her website is something that offers the information and keeps it updated. Right? This is where the updates are happening, on her website. Right? If somebody comes to this link right here a year from now and clicks this link to see the current listings, it's going to be the current listings that are on the market in a year, not the ones that were on the market today. I hope that makes sense. So she thinks in terms of evergreen. How can I make my content something that will be good over time? And then for the things where I want to get stuff in there, like listings, which makes absolute sense, I link to a place that keeps them updated. The IDX component of my website, for instance. We'll really dive into this in the last class. Are there instructions on how to add a Google map, a recent sale Google map, etc.? So Helen's talking about something like, let's just go. So here's her Baxter Heights page on her website. And Katrina has this little map that shows you all the stuff that's sold in Baxter Heights recently. This one closed long ago, right? But she's got all this data in here. How did she do that? I don't have instructions for how she did that. I can give you instructions. If you ever want to come here and do this, right? How to add a custom Google map to my blog. Search for it on ActiveRain. Let's just see if anybody's ever written about that. Oh, customizing and embedding Google Maps. Awesome. Craig goes through and he does a video tutorial for you right here on how to customize and embed a Google map. We have over 3 million pieces of content on ActiveRain. There's a pretty good chance that if you have a question, there's an awesome answer for it, and you might even get lucky and find a tutorial video that somebody did. Yeah, Randy, the SEMrush, awesome keyword search tool. Again, though, that stuff out on the long tail, there becomes a point where it just becomes your gut. It becomes your doing a class like this and kind of understanding how to build out a keyword phrase. Because Katrina Benton, had she gone to SEMrush and looked up homes for sale near Jackson Elementary in Anchorage, I promise you it would have said, forget about it, Katrina. It doesn't get searched in any volume that would matter to you. The problem is that on the back end of her website, I can see people coming to her website from that blog post, which means they found it, which means it sent them back to the website because they think they're going to get to see a list of houses near Jackson Elementary, which is exactly what she gives them. That's why she generates the lead. So be careful with those keyword tools. They're great for a high-level look, but when you really drill down into your market, sometimes your understanding and of my theory, I'll use that term loosely, is what's important. Yeah, Chris says, what do you recommend for setting up a blog? I recommend going to ActiveRain and turning your account into a Rainmaker account. I think in the email that we send you guys out after this with the recording, there'll be a link for the promo. Chris, you can set it up on a WordPress. You're not going to get the immediate kind of juice that an ActiveRain post gets. Here's how most of our members have gone about creating their blogging presence. They start on ActiveRain. They get to the point where they think, I can really do this. I'm starting to see results. I'm starting to see traffic back to my website. Then they pick one specific area of their market that they want to focus on, and they create a WordPress blog out of that. Or sometimes even one specific niche that they want to focus on. A great example is a lady named Courtney Cooper. She's an agent from Seattle. She still blogs on ActiveRain. She started blogging on ActiveRain. At some point, she decided, you know what, I'm in this. I'm seeing the results from this. I want to create my own WordPress blog, and that WordPress blog is going to focus on houseboats in Seattle. I want to dominate the market for houseboats in Seattle. If you guys have ever seen Sleepless in Seattle, we got a lot of houseboats in Seattle. If you Google anything having to do with them, Courtney Cooper's WordPress blog shows up. Now, part of the reason it shows up is because she didn't stop blogging on ActiveRain. She'd still put some stuff there and link back to her WordPress blog, helping her WordPress blogs come up in the search engines. Lindsay says, how do you blog on keyword phrases, i.e. homes for sale in Buffalo Grove, if you don't have any listings in the area? Again, let's go back and look. Now, we're at the top of the hour, past it. You guys, if you got to go, I completely understand. But let me go back for a second and let's look at, did I lose it? It's way back here. Let's look at Katrina's blog post because she wrote about Baxter Heights condos. On the blog post itself, she didn't talk about any particular listing, right? If you want to see the listings, you got to come here to her website. Now, on her website, there's 2 listings, but guess what? Neither one of these may be hers. Now, it happens that this one is Keller Williams Realty Alaska Group, which is her office. I don't know if this is her particular listing, right? Let's say it's not. Let's say both the listing offices were Dwell Realty, but what your IDX allows you to do is serve up listings from everybody in your market. So you don't have to have, she doesn't have any listings here in Baxter Heights. Doesn't matter. Right? She's able to link to her website to where the listings are legally displayed, right? Her IDX agreement allows her to take listings from other brokers and display them on her website. Barbara says, how many times a week is good to blog? As often as you can find the time. Look, there's 2 ways. If you want to have a presence online, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can pay for it or you can work for it. Here's what I would say. Try to be consistent, Barbara. So if that means you're going to blog twice a week, try to be consistent. Don't put up 7 posts one week and then not do anything for a month. Okay, Google is looking at patterns, right? They're looking at, like, if you do that, even worse would be put 7 posts up in one day and then don't blog for a month or don't blog for 3 months, or right? You'd be better off spacing those posts out over the month and having one every couple of days because you're consistently adding new content. You're consistently fueling Google's need for new content. You're consistently showing them that you're this new author out here who's creating great stuff. Okay? As opposed to, like, because think about it. Even if I'd written 7 posts over the course of a week and then I decided to post them all at the same time, that's not a good signal to the search engine. Where did this guy just come out of nowhere and all of a sudden he's got 7 huge pieces of content that he just dropped within an hour? You and I would look suspiciously at that. I see it on ActiveRain all the time and I look suspiciously at that. Why are you doing this? I mean, we have a feature on there where you can schedule your posts out, drop all 7 of them in there and schedule them 2 days apart, for goodness sakes. It's a great question. But it's one of those answers where, the more you do it, the faster you're going to get to the results that you desire. Aaron says, when people search Trulia for information, will it now be searching for results in ActiveRain? No, the search functionality on Trulia is not crossing over at this point. It's absolutely something that we'll get accomplished before long. It says, does our info strengthen Trulia's ranking? Trulia doesn't need our info to strengthen their ranking. Jay, yes, it is going to help them, but us being under the Trulia domain is going to help us too. And so when somebody finds a piece of content, like let's go back in here and let me just, well, that's not a good. Let's just do Baxter Heights condos in Anchorage. So I'm going to take us to my incognito window because I always like to search Google kind of incognito mode, which means they don't know who I am, they don't know what websites I've been on. Baxter Heights. Okay, so oops. Okay, so here's her ActiveRain blog. We talked about it being on the Trulia domain. Is it helping them? Well, the consumer who finds this, the only way they're going to know this on the Trulia domain is if they come up here and they go like this. I would actually try to find another way to even get to Trulia, right? Like this is Katrina's, right? They're going to come here to her link. They're going to call her. The only other way for them to get to Trulia from this page is somewhere all the way down here at the bottom. There's a little link for Trulia. It's, you know, it's going to help them, but it's going to help us immensely. Like, our content is going to be getting out there because we're coming from a stronger domain. Yep, replay's coming. If you got to go, I totally understand. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you guys have additional questions, what you can do is you can head over to facebook.com/ActiveRain. Leave your question on our wall there at ActiveRain Facebook page. I'll jump in and answer it throughout the day. Spend some time checking in there, making sure everybody's questions are answered. I went 15 minutes long. Carrie's waiting to get back to work. I got some stuff I got to do. You guys all have stuff you got to do. Have an awesome rest of your day. We'll see you next week for Google Authorship and Google Author Authority. On behalf of Alicia and Carrie, who are always so gracefully behind the scenes, my name is Bob Stewart at ActiveRain University. Bye-bye, everybody.